Welcome to the Children's Room Circle of Hope Breakfast. My name is Kim Kerr. I came to the Children's Room 18 years ago as a volunteer facilitator and proudly welcome you to our program today in my role as the philanthropy director. Thank you to our staff, board, volunteers, and hosts. We appreciate all that you do for the Children's Room and for the families we serve. I am passionate about our mission to ensure that no child, teen, or family has to grieve alone. This is the reason I first volunteered in 2004 as a program facilitator with the Littles, our youngest children. It is the stories of our families that continue to motivate me today. One such family is the O'Connors. You will have the privilege of meeting later in our program. I first met Potty just 3 months after the death of his son Harry, when he came to our house in Arlington to interview for a Boston Marathon bib as a member of our Miles and Memories team. I asked Potty why running the Boston Marathon to raise funds for TCR would be meaningful to him, and he told me, "My teens are really enjoying the teen program, and this will give me a way to give something back." Potty and his family are the epitome of the resilience we see in our families. I am pleased and proud to share our program today with you and to introduce you to so many wonderful people. We are extremely grateful to this year's breakfast sponsors. Because of their generosity, every dollar raised today will go directly to support our programs for grieving children, teens, and families. And a special thank you to our $10,000 presenting sponsor, Zipwall. This year in Massachusetts, there are 96,000 children who have experienced the death of a parent or a sibling. 96,000. Said in another way, 1 in 14 children in Massachusetts will have a parent or a sibling die before they turn just 18. We know that children grieve differently from adults, and that is why it is critical that programs like the Children's Room exist. Our approach is grounded in research and experience, woven in with creativity and flexibility. It is this creativity and flexibility which we have relied upon even more so over the past 2 years. The Children's Room and our families are resilient. At this time, I would like to introduce Fisher Williams, who participated in our peer support groups with his mom, Joy, and brother, Reuben, after the death of their husband and dad. He will be playing Mendelssohn's Fleecy Clouds. Fisher's mom told me that although her husband Brent was not one to brag about his boys, their piano playing was what he was most proud of and would often share with others.
Thank you, Fisher, for sharing your musical talent with us. Hi, and thanks for carving out some time to learn more about the Children's Room. My name is Jenny Carlson-Petrazik. I'm a former participant in and the current board chair of the Children's Room. In January of 2009, my wife Jean died at the age of 40. A month later, our daughters, Zoe and Lucy, turned 5 and 6. So in the span of a month, I planned a memorial service and a princess birthday party. As you can imagine, neither would have happened without the incredible, loving support of family and friends. Grief simply didn't allow my brain to function well enough to pull that off on my own, that's for sure. Similarly, without the expert support of the Children's Room following Jean's death, I'm not sure how Zoe, Lucy, or I would have figured out how to move from surviving to eventually thriving. Jean, of course, remains an active part of our lives and always will. We miss her daily and remember her with smiles, laughter, and occasional tears. And every day, with gratitude for all that TCR has taught us, we live well, we love deeply, and we laugh often. Here at the Children's Room, we believe that no child, teen, or family should have to grieve alone, and that in being together, we have the capacity to learn and to grow over time, and to thrive in many ways. As the board chair, I collaborate with fellow board members and TCR's incredible staff to ensure that children like Zoe and Lucy, and parents like me, have access to TCR's expert support and varied programming. As Kim shared in her welcome, 1 in 14 children in Massachusetts will have a parent or sibling die before they turn 18. These numbers are not mere abstractions at the Children's Room. For example, in the month of February alone, TCR provided 68 information and referral resources to individuals and professionals who reached out to us. 68. Compare this to 36 in February of 2020, nearly double. We've also doubled the amount of sessions of Parenting While Grieving, a psychoed didactic series. This year, we have expanded into new communities, including Boston, Lawrence, Stoneham, and Easton, for our in-person school groups to meet increased demand. And every time we publicize a new virtual family night or teens-only program, the registration fills almost immediately. The need for our services has never been greater. Our lean staff is incredible, and it will need to expand as our reach continues to increase. Our focus on extending out has only fueled our ongoing efforts to look in and to focus on areas of growth and development. Over the past year, we have diversified our board as we move into new communities, committed to and started a comprehensive staff and board diversity, equity, and inclusion training, and updated our materials and website in Spanish. And we're currently seeking a Spanish-speaking clinician to add to our staff. Death and grief do not recognize the social constructs that too often separate communities. Death and grief are human experiences, and TCR, both by reaching out to new communities and by continuing to develop our own skill sets, is working to increase access to its services for all children and families who are experiencing them. We look forward to resuming in-person programming at our house in Arlington, and at the same time, we have learned a ton during the pandemic. We now know with confidence that we can effectively deliver our programs and services in new ways that can dramatically increase access. We remain dedicated to our mission, whether grief support is provided virtually or in person. Finally, it's important for you to know that when the Children's Room opened its doors close to 30 years ago, we made a promise to never charge a family for its life-changing programming. This fact continues to blow my mind. The Children's Room provides free programming to grieving families. Let that sink in. A family's wealth and the presence and peculiarities of health insurance policies are irrelevant. All who need and want TCR services can access them. We can make this promise because of people like you and me. 99% of our $1.3 million operating budget comes from fundraising efforts, and the vast majority of that comes in the form of donations and pledges from generous individuals who understand the importance and impact of our work. Please consider becoming a Circle donor, and if you are already a Circle donor, please think about increasing or extending your pledge. 100% of every gift of any size made today will go directly to keeping grieving children, teens, and families connected. Thank you. And now it is my honor to introduce you to Paudie, Laura, Ellen, Charlie, and Joe O'Connor, who participated in our peer support and teen programs from 2018 to 2020 after the death of their son and brother, Harry.
Harry was a big personality. He may only have been 8, but he had personality of a lion, honestly.
Brought a bit of mischief. He was the oil in the family that kind of kept us all running.
My mother referred to him as the sting in the tail. He just had such spirit. He brought life to the rest of us.
It was July 26, 2017. I was on a work trip. I got a call saying there was a boating accident in Buzzards Bay. Everyone was wearing life jackets and unfortunately Harry got stuck under the boat with his life jacket on. He was put on a manual ventilator, airlifted to Boston Children's. Those 3 days that we had with him, you know, you always live with a tiny bit of hope. But on the night of the 29th, he was unplugged from the machine and passed away.
Harry was such a lively, wonderful kid that truly we couldn't dishonour him by not doing everything in our power to make sure the rest of us could keep going. We sought out help almost immediately. When we first started coming to the children's room with the kids, with Ellen, Charlie and Joe, they were reluctant because they didn't really know what it meant.
I was very hesitant to come because, okay, you're going to this therapy session with a bunch of other kids and you're not used to talking with other people about this topic because it's so new. But as soon as you walk in, you meet all the people. It's something special.
The peer groups were like 8 weeks where you meet once a week. It just created like a bond between all the teens who were there. Ellen and I both did 5 sessions of the peer group. We just were always happier when we were here.
The teen events were held once every few months, and it's when we got to go out and experience something with a group of teens that were not necessarily in our teen group. So you get to meet a bunch of new people, and in the beginning you kind of all share your stories very quickly, and then you get to know each other and just go off and have fun for the day.
So the children's room has been actually so helpful to just remember and talk about Harry. We did this activity where we made stones about a loved one that we lost. I made my stone for my brother Harry. It's blue because that was his favorite color. You can see everyone else's stone. It's actually really cool to see like the representation of everybody's person. My favorite memory with Harry was every night before bed we'd go upstairs, everyone would go brush their teeth and just annoy each other.
It's hard every time you walk through the door. But it is a place where there's an empathy and an understanding. You get the feeling of being understood and listened to.
As soon as you open the door to the children's room, you come in, all you see is artwork and pictures and memories that other teens that have gone through these programs put up around the house, which is very warming and welcoming.
It's the same for everyone, irrespective of the set of circumstances. The same pain, the same grief. And then, you know, the little bit of optimism, as Laura said, you see people 2 and 3 years on and eventually get to a point where you're able to look back with fondness versus, you know, all the other hard emotions. And that's kind of what it's like now. Remembering the good times, because there were so many.
You heard Fisher Williams play the piano earlier in our program. Now, his mom, Joy, would like to share their story with you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joy. In November 2017, my husband, Brent, died of a heart attack. He was 43 years old. With words like these, we introduce ourselves to one another at the Children's Room. And today, I'm honored to be able to represent this organization and the families it supports, including mine, and to share our story in a bit more detail. On that November day in 2017, I lost my husband and partner of more than 20 years. Our sons, who were 8 and 11 at the time, lost their biggest fan. My in-laws, who'd already lost one son many years before, lost another. And our friends and family lost their beloved colleague, their ride or die, a trusted confidant, and a great storyteller and memory keeper who never forgot a face. Brent had an immense capacity for curiosity. It's what drew me to him during our college years, and I think it's what drove his quest to be the smartest man in the world. While he described this pursuit to others with good humor, I know for a fact that he thoroughly enjoyed working through Mensa puzzles, reading up on everything from mathematics to materials science, networking old CPUs and teaching himself programming in our tiny Cambridge apartment, and above all, asking questions, and more questions, in whatever context he found himself. A chemist turned engineer, Brent's favorite occupation was being dad to our 2 sons, Fisher and Reuben. He was involved, signing up for skating lessons so that he could keep up with them on the ice since they both played hockey, and he was doting, showing their piano recital videos to anyone who'd watch them. I often traveled for work, and Brent was more than happy to solo parent, joking that he'd keep the scary movies and junk food to a minimum while I was gone. And when I returned, the 3 of them were generally intact, usually unshowered, and quite delighted by whatever they'd gotten away with while I was gone. When our oldest son was in elementary school, his teacher asked Brent to come in and talk to the class about his work as a mission planning manager for the Chandra X-ray Observatory. As he was preparing for the talk, Brent asked me for some feedback on his presentation. So I asked him, "You're making PowerPoint slides for second graders?" On the day of the event, Brent handed out NASA pins, posters, and other swag to each student in the class. He spoke about the satellite, showing the stunning images it captured of galaxies, supernovas, and black holes. The wonder of these 7- and 8-year-olds was audible as Brent clicked through his slides. And as he was preparing to tell them something he found equally fascinating, constraint management, a little hand shot up. "Mr. Williams, can we talk about those black holes?" Brent started to say that the next few slides were about a different topic. He had a plan, as engineers often do, but this boy was undeterred. He'd recently heard that there was a distinct possibility that black holes could swallow up the Earth in our lifetime. He was scared, and as he shared this concern with his classmates, fear registered on their faces. Brent took a deep breath, stopped his slideshow, and said, "Okay, let's talk about those black holes." Black holes are terrifying conceptually, and even more so in reality, much like those first days and weeks of grief. For the boys and me, that time was marked by pain, fear, and a darkness, all but impossible for us to push through. Among the darkest for me was finding Brent unresponsive, and the faces of the first responders that day, some of whom were also my friends, confirming what I'd already suspected. Searching for the words to tell our boys that their dad had died, how I could possibly make that truthful and bearable. And steeling myself as I called our loved ones to break the news. The grip I kept on my neighbor's hand as I listened again and again to the disbelief and anguish on the other end of the line. In those first days, what I wanted most was for time to pass quickly, to leap ahead into the future when my loss wouldn't be so raw, when I would be comfortable in my identity as a widow rather than self-conscious of it, and when Fisher and Reuben could look back and see just how much they were loved by their dad, by me, and by the hundreds of people who showed up in spite of, or perhaps because of, their own pain. A friend of ours called Brent's funeral services awful and awesome. A wall of red hockey jerseys around the perimeter of the church sanctuary showed that our youth sports community was both the family we knew them to be and the fortress we needed them to be. My sons stepped to the podium, determined to eulogize their father. Fisher managed to thank everyone for coming before it was clear he could go no further. And my sister stepped in gently, naturally, to pick up where he left off. The carpools, the meal trains, and the cooking tips, because Brent had been the family chef, stretched on for months. Through these gestures, I felt held, I felt hope, and I wanted my kids to feel that too. The boys and I came to the children's room in January 2018, 2 months after Brent died. The beauty of peer support groups at TCR is that at the outset, newcomers are meant to benefit from the wisdom and insight of the more experienced members. They are the OGs of the club that no one asked to join. In her book Wintering, Catherine May writes that if happiness is a skill, then sadness is too. And yet, we are taught to ignore it, to stuff it down into our satchels, and to pretend that it isn't there. The wonderful facilitators and the amazing humans of Group F at the Children's Room know the skill that is sadness. They taught me the value, the necessity even, of pulling it out of my satchel and being candid about its impact on my parenting, my relationships, and even my own health. We closed every session with an update on what we'd done that week for self-care, something that felt all but impossible in the beginning, but which became essential during the pandemic. Similarly, children and teens at TCR are encouraged to open their own satchels, to use art and activities as outlets for grief. My son Reuben loved the volunteers who challenged him to a foosball match or to a pillow fight in the high-energy room. Fisher likened the staff and the volunteers to big brothers and sisters who made him feel safe and seen. The boys were encouraged to record favorite memories of their dad and turn them into luminaries. And the three of us participated in TCR's annual Memories Walk with many of our dearest friends and supporters. Though sometimes, whether younger or older, simply just sitting in the company of other grievers was enough at the Children's Room. When TCR quickly shifted to meeting virtually during the pandemic, our conversations still included things like when to donate our loved ones' personal belongings and how to manage the first holidays and anniversaries without them. But now, we had to navigate the uncertainties of the time. We had to figure out how to entertain and educate our kids while working at home as solo and grieving parents. And we had to determine whether or not allowing family or friends into the home was disruptive or even safe. It's amazing to me how, in circumstances like these, we find our people. A woman named Sade joined our group in the fall of 2018. She was reserved, yet warm and welcoming, and when she spoke, her words were a balm to me. I wanted to bottle them up for a later time when my grief, like a bad knee, acted up. I approached her one day to thank her for this. Turns out, our husbands had died around the same time and in similar, unexpected ways. We shared a faith and a church community nearby. She has been a rock and a witness for me ever since. She's willing to pause, like Brent did in that second grade classroom, and talk with me about black holes. To see if, in all that darkness, there might be an opening for light and even for joy to come in. Like black holes, the pull of grief is strong. Perhaps it's because we're meant to sit in it for a time, together, with our loved ones and with those whom circumstance brings to us, and alone, for a time of reflection or self-discovery. But we're hardly alone, really, given that we carry the loved ones we've lost with us always. Either way, we allow ourselves to be held by both grief and love, both awful and awesome, and we're better equipped to listen, to learn, and to hope. There is wonder in stillness like that. My family found it last summer when we held a remembrance for Brent on his favorite lake. It was early evening. A storm had just passed. The surface of the water was smooth as glass, and ours was the only boat in sight. The boys were able to say their goodbyes without faltering, and I read from Wendell Berry's poem, The Peace of Wild Things, which ends, "For a time I rested in the grace of the world and was free." I am grateful that a place like TCR exists, where grieving families can come to listen, to learn, and to find hope. And I'm so grateful to each of you for coming today and for your support of the Children's Room. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joy, for sharing your story with our community. You, Fisher, and Ruben are so inspiring, and all of us at the Children's Room are truly grateful that we could provide the support you needed after Brent's death. And now, program volunteer and Circle Pledge donor Jack Rogers will share how you can ensure that families such as the O'Connors and Williams never have to grieve alone.
Hello, my name is Jack Rogers, and I have been a support group facilitator for the Children's Room since 2017. During this time, I have facilitated a Thursday night peer support group for 8, 9, and 10-year-old children whose parent or sibling has died. I volunteer because I believe so strongly in the mission, vision, and values of the Children's Room. The work is hard, fulfilling, frustrating, and often amazing. No two nights are the same. My wife and I are also Circle of Hope pledge donors, helping to provide sustainable funding for the future of the Children's Room. We made this decision when I began volunteering and after attending a Circle of Hope breakfast like this one. The Children's Room is all about connection. As a volunteer facilitator, I never know when or how that connection will be made, but I do know it will occur. Whether it is playing foosball, having a child try to teach me chess, or letting a child blow off steam and have fun in the high energy room, the connection occurs and it is powerful. It may take a while and it may be very, very subtle, but the connection occurs. As many have said today, but what cannot be said enough is that the life-changing services offered by the Children's Room are needed now more than ever. The Children's Room has done an amazing job adapting to a virtual world, and I have no doubt that work will continue and thrive as we all find our way to new models and new ways of doing things. This can only be done, however, with the financial support of generous and caring people like you, who want to see the Children's Room continue with its mission. Today, you have heard different pieces of the Children's Room story and met some of our inspiring families. At this time, I would like to ask you to make a financial investment. There are 96,000 grieving children in Massachusetts, and our intention is to increase access to our safe and supportive community so that no child, teen, or family has to grieve alone. You have an opportunity today to help families like the Williams and the O'Connors. We cannot do this alone. As you've already heard, the Children's Room does not charge families to participate in our programs, since financial hardship often accompanies their loss. Our programs and services are supported 99% through philanthropy, with 80% of our $1.3 million budget coming from you, individual donors. I'm thrilled to share that an anonymous longtime Circle donor has offered to match all new and increased or extended 5-year Circle pledges made today up to $50,000 to challenge us all today to support the Children's Room. Please keep their generosity in mind when making your donation decision. Some of you have attended our breakfast in the past and pledged your support. For that, we sincerely thank you. The Circle of Hope pledge level descriptions are meant to give you a sense of what your contribution can do. Thanks to our generous sponsors, 100% of your donation will go towards supporting our programs at the Children's Room. The first giving level is a pledge of $1,000 a year for 5 years. We call this our Open Arms Circle. Each year, your $1,000 donation will enable one child to participate in a peer support group. We also invite you to consider joining the Hope Givers Circle with a pledge of $5,000 a year for 5 years. Each year, your $5,000 donation will allow 5 teens to participate in a teens-only grief support group like the ones Ellen, Joe, and Charlie O'Connor attended. Some of you may be with a company or foundation or may be in a position to give more. We invite you to join our Forever Circle, which is $10,000 a year for 5 years. Each year, your $10,000 donation will provide funding for community or school groups serving 20 children and teens. If you're able to join donors like my family listed in our program as members of the Circle of Hope giving community, we would be incredibly grateful for your generous support. If you wish to make a gift at a different level, please include the amount and time frame. No donation is too small. Please keep in mind we accept gifts of stock and appreciated assets where both the Children's Room and you as a donor can benefit. If possible, we ask that you make the first payment on your pledge today on the pledge form you received in the mail or by clicking the donate link in the chat. Again, we truly appreciate any level of support. Please help us keep our life-changing programs at the Children's Room funded. We need your support now more than ever. Thank you for taking the time to join us, and thank you for your generous support of the Children's Room.
On behalf of our board, staff, and volunteers, thank you for joining us today and for your generous support. We hope you will share with others what you have learned and heard. And now, Reuben Williams will close our program with Elman Reich's Spinning Song.